Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 175. Without any delay, start explanation. Clang. The flames circulated and engulfed Long Yu's entire body in an instant. Yet, Long Yu tightly gripped the saint sword that had descended from the sky in his right palm. Yu Jingyu felt as if he had stabbed into a metallic mountain. There was no way he could stab an inch further. On the other hand, the holy light that he had released enshrouded Long Yu's body, which seemed highly dense that it was impenetrable. There was no way his holy light could bore into Long Yu's body no matter how hard he tried. Subsequently, the holy light vanished while the saint sword in Long Yu's hand disappeared. In the next moment, the saint sword appeared once again. This time, it pierced directly at Long Yu's lower abdomen. Long Yu's left hand crossed downward, colliding with the sword's blade. Yu Jingyu felt a rush of tremendous force unleashed that his body tumbled forward. But he was quick to react. His foot stepped with a ghost shadow perplexing track as his body shimmered with a ghostly image. The saint sword was retracted and released again. This time, he pierced Long Yu's rib at an intricate angle. Yu Jingyu's current position was at Long Yu's blind spot. He was at a location lateral to Long Yu. At this moment, the third soul ring on Yu Jingyu's body glowed. His saint sword turned translucent. The light of judgment combined with the saint sword to form a translucent light blade. His control of his soul skill had since achieved a remarkable level. The extreme power from the combination of saint sword and the light of judgment exceeded an ordinary third soul skill. What happened next was an episode that astonished Yu Jingyu. Long Yu swayed his body as it turned illusory. His speed matched Yu Jingyu's. Yu Jingyu's calculated stab had missed its mark to his surprise. Yu Jingyu stammered, "Ghost shadow perplexing track." Undoubtedly, Long Yu's maneuver in dodging his stab was the Tang San technique's ghost shadow perplexing track. Yu Jingyu then witnessed Long Yu's right hand slapping forward. His palm had completely turned to white. At the same time, it grew into a gigantic palm, with a diameter of 2 meters, which was moving toward Yu Jingyu. Yu Jingyu's body twisted. His saint sword changed directions together with the light of judgment. His piercing movement turned into a picking maneuver. The tip of his sword was aimed at Long Yu's palm. Yu Jingyu's body shook with a crisp sound as he retreated 2 steps. The light of judgment covered Long Yu's body in an instant. This was the horrifying part about the sword. It was not only for stabbing but also acted as a conductor for the light of judgment. A series of popping sounds emanated from Long Yu's body. The light of judgment's attacking power was terrifying. Generally, a soul master's martial soul would produce a qualitative change once it achieved a 3-ringed cultivation base. The Holy Angel martial soul was the highest grade martial soul, so its third soul skill was naturally powerful. The light of judgment was purely an attacking tactic. Its power was beyond imagination when the light of judgment was used as the third soul skill in addition to the saint sword. Meanwhile, Yu Jingyu heard a roar that sounded berserk and was filled with wild energy. Then, he saw the holy light which he used to enshroud Long Yu's body was forcibly torn apart. Long Yu's hefty body was expanding rapidly. He swelled up to over 5 meters in a split second. Yu Jingyu fixed his eyes upon Long Yu while he took another deep breath. Long Yu's appearance now was shocking. His body was covered in a layer of large dark brown scales. The scales were round and each piece of scale protruded like a ball that was cut into 2 halves. A long tail dragged behind his back. With his brawny muscles and wide shoulders, he appeared more spine-chilling than Yuan and Yehue when she transformed into the Devil Titan. More importantly, Yu Jingyu saw Long Yu's soul rings. This was the first time Long Yu had released his soul rings in the competition. Purple, purple, purple. The first 3 soul rings were 1,000-year purple soul rings. Next, black. His 4th soul ring was a 10,000-year soul ring. Next, black again. His 5th soul ring was another 10,000-year soul ring. This was in line with the expectation of Shrek Academy's contingent. His final soul ring was black as well, the 3rd 10,000-year soul ring. Yes. He was a 6-ringed soul emperor. The person who stood before Yu Jingyu presently was not a 4-ringed soul ancestor nor a 5-ringed soul king, but was truly one who possessed 6 soul rings. Besides, 3 of his soul rings were of the incredible 10,000-year level. He was a 6-ringed soul emperor. How is that possible? Xu Xiaoyan, who was astonished, cried out inadvertently in the waiting area. Yes? How is that possible? He was actually a 6-ringed soul emperor. Long Yu was not yet 20 years old, so he qualified to participate in the Continental Young High-Ranking Soul Masters Elite competition. He possessed 6 soul rings and he is not even 20 years old. He was unimaginably powerful with his cultivation base that achieved a breakthrough to the 60th rank. Such opponents were held in awe. When Tang Wulin was first acquainted with Wu Zhongkong was then a 6-ringed soul emperor. So, it was a surprise for them to come across such an opponent in the Young Soul Masters competition. There was absolutely no one who possessed 6 soul rings before the age of 20, not even a single person from Shrek Academy. Shrek Squad's natural endowments were already the best among their peers, but they were still a long way from becoming 5-ringed soul masters. They were all confident that they could achieve a breakthrough to 5 soul rings before the age of 20 to become soul kings. Nevertheless, it would take them at least another 3 to 4 years upon reaching the age of 20 to become soul emperors. In the case of Long Yu, he was already a 6-ringed soul emperor. It was undeniable that this fact shocked them tremendously. No wonder he had never before unleashed his martial soul. Even then, he was capable of defeating his enemies. Long Yu was beyond everyone's level. He domineered over them completely. Frankly, he was an opponent without peer. It was a bombshell for Yu Jingyu. Instinctively, he backed away a few steps. His wings flapped forward strenuously to pull his body back rapidly so as to keep a safe distance between Long Yu and himself. Long Yu's face was oversized. His eyes were gleaming with dark red radiance. Your power is rather impressive. It's already a high-grade martial soul for a 4-ringed cultivation base. Thus, you're qualified to witness my martial soul. But, I apologize for what's about to happen. Even I'm incapable of controlling my strength at times. My martial soul is the Mountain Dragon. Long Yu's upper body perked up unexpectedly as his voice faded away. A gargantuan figure emerged behind his back, and it was constantly changing. At times, it had the appearance of a giant dragon without wings, but at other times, it appeared like an unsophisticated city. One would be alarmed to discover that a city was located on the back of the dragon while the gigantic dragon transformed into a stretch of mountain range. The incredible scene blew the minds of Yu Jingyu and the audience away. Mountain Dragon. Ji Yu's gaze froze for a moment as she stood beside Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin looked toward her. You know anything about this martial soul? I've never learned about it from the academy. Is it an elemental dragon? Ji Yu shook her head. No, it's not an elemental dragon. It's a real dragon. Moreover, it's one of the strongest among the real dragons. There's a saying the mountain dragon takes the crown. Tang Wulin was stunned. The mountain dragon takes the crown? He has no wings, and he cannot fly. Is he a real dragon at all? Ji Yu explained, yes. The mountain dragon is a rather peculiar creature among the dragon clan. Legend has it that a long time ago, the dragon god started roaming the galaxy not long after he was born. Later, he found a planet and was prepared to settle down on the planet. Thereupon, he began creating his first-generation children. There were a total of 9 children and they became the legendary 9 great dragon kings. Since they were created by the dragon god, they were both his children and lords. Following that, the 9 great dragon kings procreated and established their territories. But then, there were only the 8 great dragon clans. The 9 great dragon kings included the golden-eyed black dragon king that controlled darkness, the jade dragon king that controlled time and space, and the holy dragon king that controlled light and prayers. Why were there only the 8 great dragon clans when there were the 9 great dragon kings? Tang Wulin queried about the mismatch. Ji Yu spoke in a deep voice, I was about to mention that. Every one of the 9 great dragon kings were extremely powerful as they had inherited a portion of the dragon god's strength. The golden-eyed black dragon king was the dragon god's defense that assisted the dragon god in mustering the clan's order. The holy dragon king was responsible for creating life, and hence for breeding. The least conspicuous among the 9 great dragon kings seemed ordinary. Nonetheless, it played an important role. It was because the planet created by the dragon god was completely covered in water. The dragon clan was not afraid of water, but the sea was not a suitable home. Consequently, the dragon god created the 9th dragon king and instructed him to transform his body into a continent, so it could become a nesting ground for the dragon clan. He paid a great price for the descendants of the dragon clan. The mountain dragon king's clan was meant to become solid ground and form the continents to assist the dragon clan in breeding and growing, but that made their own breeding highly problematic. The mountain dragon king's clan had very few members. Moreover, they would transform themselves into lands and continents as soon as they were fully grown. The dragon god was so grateful for their contribution, he bestowed the mountain dragon king's lineage with a covenant. It was, the mountain dragon takes the crown. In other words, every mountain dragon could be bestowed with the royal title once it was fully grown. They lost their freedom, but they earned a prestigious position. They were finally honored as the leader of the 9 great dragon kings of the dragon clan in the end. Jiuyu's words left Tang Wulin and his companions dumbstruck. Yi Xinglan, who was always self-contained, could not help asking, Jiuyu, such a legend should only belong to the dragon clan, right? I've never read about this in the Academy's library. How did you know about this? Jiuyu answered, there are some exceedingly ancient writings in the Spirit Pagoda. This was recorded in there. I thought that it was just a legend, but I finally realized after witnessing Long Yu's transformation earlier that this was actually true. The mountain dragon's lineage truly does exist. Moreover, some human beings can even possess the mountain dragon martial soul. Most certainly, this must be the mountain dragon king martial soul. The mountain dragon king's lineage was inherited at an extremely slow pace. That was why they were not only real dragons, they had the purest bloodline. They were a genuine dragon clan that was closest to the 2nd generation of dragon kings. If real dragons still existed today, then any mountain dragon that made an appearance would certainly become the leader of all the dragon clans. This fellow Long Yu is really terrifying. Tang Wulin inhaled a deep breath as he looked at Long Yu on the screen. The expression on his face was baffling. Originally, his heart was overjoyed the moment he heard Long Yu announce that his martial soul was a mountain dragon because Tang Wulin's bloodline power had an extremely intense suppressing ability over other dragon-type martial souls. But after listening to Jiuyu's explanation, he understood that the mountain dragon king martial soul was not that simple. It was difficult to tell who was capable of suppressing who. Jiuyu, have you ever read about the Golden Dragon King's legend in that ancient recordings? Was the Golden Dragon King one of the 9 great dragons? Tang Wulin asked. Jiuyu nodded. Of course I've heard about it before. The Golden Dragon King's legend is even more impressive than the Mountain Dragon King. I'll tell you more after the match. Meanwhile, the battle on the competition stage had already become white-hot. Long Yu's force had elevated to a terrifying level after he had revealed his Mountain Dragon King martial soul. The entire competition stage was shaking ever so slightly because of his presence. It was fear, the fear and admiration radiating from the land. Yu Zhenyu had never met such an opponent before. As he stood before Long Yu, his heart despaired that victory was out of reach. Long Yu's eyes were fixated on Yu Zhenyu when he suddenly laughed wildly. He bent over and smashed his right fist onto the ground. The first soul ring on his body glowed following that. Mountains. His first soul skill was the mountains. The competition stage's ground cracked as small mountains surged out of the ground akin to the tips of swords. It was as if the mountains were connected to the sky and ground, and they covered the entire competition arena in a split second. Yu Zhenyu's reaction was not slow. He managed to release his 4th soul ring at once. In reality, he was aware that it was impossible for him to triumph over the opponent when Long Yu revealed his martial soul. Nevertheless, among his companions, he would certainly not be the last to face Long Yu. Therefore, he would try his best to ensure that his opponent displayed more of his abilities. Even if he could not triumph, his companions could observe carefully and prepare themselves to fight Long Yu in the future. These were Yu Zhengyu's thoughts. He wanted to try his best to delay the match, so that as many of the Mountain Dragon King martial soul skill could be released as possible. This way, his companions would get a better understanding of Long Yu's abilities. The Holy Angel Martial Soul's fourth soul skill, the Angel's Descent, was released. The dazzling golden light enshrouded Yu Zhengyu's whole body. With a flap of his shining wings, he had already turned gold from head to toe. Intense holy light burst out from his body. The mountains surged skyward and chased after him. He was constantly changing his movements in the sky in an attempt to dodge the barrage of attacks that came one after another continuously. The opponent was too powerful. It was utterly impossible for him to dodge everything due to the rate of the mountain's attacks and the wide area they covered. Streams of light of judgment shone down continuously to smash against the mountains. Yet, the mountains that covered the entire competition arena were even more overwhelming than the dazzling radiance. Yu Zhengyu flapped his wings. He had finally found an opening to cross through the mountains and dashed in front of Long Yu. He held the Saint Sword in his hands as he descended from the sky. The enhancing effects from all 5 pieces of his battle armor instantly concentrated into the Saint Sword. The holy light and the light of judgment combined together completely. The fusion of 4 great soul skills made his entire body burn with scorching hot holy fire. He understood that he did not stand much of a chance. Things being what they were, he could not afford to waste any opportunity. He would have to attack with every ounce of his powers to test this Mountain Dragon King's skills. Long Yu cracked into a smile as he looked at Yu Zhenyu descending from the sky. The second soul ring on his body glowed. Rivers. All of a sudden, the sky seemed to have collapsed. Countless rivers dropped down from the sky in an instant like the overflowing of the Milky Way. Yu Zhenyu's body and his Saint Sword were engulfed by the terrifying downpour in a split second, and he was blown away by the impact. He was like a blade of fragile grass as he was facing all the attacks and lashing of the terrifying rivers. The Mountain Dragon King martial soul was so terrifying. Those were only its 2 initial soul skills, yet both were all wide-range attacks from every direction. Additionally, the strength of the attacks filled the entire audience with shock. The Star Luo Emperor Dai Qianling was no exception. All along, he was aware that Long Yu was very powerful, but he had never known how much. Leave alone the fact that he was a 20-year-old soul emperor, just what was his martial soul? It was truly formidable to witness. Enci's face was smiling faintly all along. The smile on his face grew wider as he stood and watched Long Yu on the competition stage. This was his favorite disciple, and also the disciple solely guided by himself. The Mountain Dragon King martial soul cultivated at a rapid speed, but very few knew about the tremendous stress that Long Yu suffered during the process of cultivation. The world had its laws of nature. There was certainly a price to pay for being powerful, just like Tang Wuling's Golden Dragon King bloodline that threatened his life at all times while constantly making him stronger. The Mountain Dragon King martial soul shared some similarities. Even though it was incapable of threatening his life, Long Yu still suffered tremendous agony during the entire cultivation process. The Mountain Dragon King sacrificed its body to transform into mountains, rivers, and continents. His cultivation direction was his own body. His body would first need to withstand such incredible strength, only then he could truly flaunt the Mountain Dragon King's power. Hence, every time Long Yu's body was elevated and gained a new soul ring, it was a terrible spiritual and physical ordeal for him. Long Yu was extremely determined. He had pushed through the experience again and again. The Monster Academy's resources had always favored him in this. He had consumed a large amount of heaven and earth treasures, such that his body could reach the level he was at now. Still, Enci worried about Long Yu, who was the exact opposite of himself during his early days. It was difficult for him to cultivate at the beginning, but it became easier as he progressed. His cultivation speed only slowed when he was at the 95th rank. Long Yu was different. His cultivation speed was swift at the beginning because he was inherently filled with soul power. His power made a significant leap each elevation thereafter. In the course of time, Long Yu's cultivation speed began decreasing substantially after his cultivation base was elevated to 6 soul rings. It was a horrendous ordeal for him each time his soul power was elevated 1 rank. He had to withstand much pain and agony. For that reason, Long Yu was called Madman Long. No matter how strong his willpower was during the process of cultivation, his personality was duly affected due to the harsh continuous torment that he underwent. If it were not because of Long Yu's determined willpower, he would have turned insane already. ENCI was figuring all sorts of ways to help Long Yu continue elevating. He would encounter problems when Long Yu continued elevating beyond 7 soul rings. Even this divine territory Dolor did not have absolute confidence in helping his disciple to continue cultivating after 7 soul rings. Once Long Yu had a spiritual breakdown, he would experience a physical breakdown as well. This was the price one paid for being powerful. One of the reasons why ENCI was headed to Dolor continent was for the sake of Long Yu. He had read from some ancient records that there were some special heaven and earth treasures on Dolor continent which could be helpful to Long Yu's future cultivation. On the competition stage, Yu Jingyu felt an intense pain as if his whole body was about to crumble. His whole being including his bones and meridians were in excruciating pain. He seemed not to be fighting against a soul master, but the whole of nature. This was truly frightening. Long Yu had the capability to make him disappear without a trace. The gargantuan figure which was domineering over the entire world appeared silently before Yu Jingyu. For the sake of Tang sect, admit your defeat, Long Yu spoke gravely. The smile on his face had vanished, and in its place, a thirst for blood was growing stronger gradually. Usually, he kept his emotions in check, but his suppressed emotions became uncontrollable whenever he used his martial soul's strength. Just like his martial soul Mountain Dragon King. The Mountain Dragon King was one of the 9 great dragon kings. His lineage wallowed in desolation while the rest of the 8 dragon kings' descendants had easy lives. Had the dragon god bestowed upon him an honorific, would he be contented? The occasional occurrence of natural disasters was the Mountain Dragon King's venting of his emotions. Where the dragon clan existed, there would be the presence of the Mountain Dragon King. Natural disasters would follow suit. Thus, it was a catastrophic calamity when the Mountain Dragon King revolted. Yu Jingyu clenched his teeth as he controlled his wings with great effort. He looked at Long Yu. I'm not going to admit defeat yet. The golden light on his body was already much dimmer as compared to before. This was the suppression caused by their differences in strength between 2 exceptionally strong powers. How could he admit his defeat so easily as a student of Shrek Academy? Oh yeah? So be it then. At the sound of a deep roar, Long Yu swung his fist forward as he punched straight at Yu Jingyu's chest. He was 5 meters tall. So, in proportion his fist was as large as a wash basin. His phenomenal strength squeezed the compressed air until it combusted spontaneously. Yu Jingyu held the saint sword with his hands. The holy fire burned on his body once again as the saint sword pierced with all its might. Boom, his body smashed onto the protective shield in the distance. A look of wildness flashed past Long Yu's eyes but vanished immediately. His left leg took a stride forward as if he was going to do something. Apparently, he was trying hard to control himself. He spoke coldly, Tang Wulin broke 8 of Hua Lantang's ribs, so I shall return the favor today. That's all. He turned around and walked toward the other side of the arena. In the arena, all the mountains and rivers gradually shrunk, rivers changed into streams, then vanished silently. At the same time, he was steadily shrinking. The arena's surface was smooth. It seemed as if nothing happened. Yu Jinyu's body slid down slowly from the protective shield. His vision darkened and he lost consciousness. The audience gaped at Long Yu's martial soul. What they witnessed shocked them to the point that they almost lost their ability to speak. Similarly, Monster Academy students stood looking at one another in the waiting area. Their looks were similarly filled with shock. They were aware that 7 of them from Monster's 8 heavenly kings could not compare to Long Yu alone. They were ashamed and felt unworthy when they could not match Long Yu's incredible power. The disparity was just too great for anyone to imagine. That was the peerless Long Yu, also known as the Mountain Dragon King Long Yu. The match ended. The victor and the defeated were determined. Shrek Academy's squad members and medical care personnel rushed onto the stage simultaneously. Just as Long Yu mentioned, Yu Jingyu had 8 broken ribs. He was seriously wounded, but fortunately it was not life-threatening. Obviously, he could not participate in the following 2-on-2 matches. Yu could still be his substitute in the group match, but definitely not for the 2-on-2 match. Tang Wulin ended Hua Lantang and Yi Xi's 2-on-2 outing, while Long Yu ended Yu Jingyu and Xu Xiaoyon's. It was an eye for an eye? The tidal wave-like jubilant sounds echoed through the entire Star Luo Coliseum. Fanga swallowed some saliva with difficulty as she muttered to herself, I can't analyze the later part of this match. The Dragon King is truly worthy of his title Dragon King. This was her first time witnessing Long Yu's martial soul and his control over mountains and rivers. This event illustrated Long Yu's strength, which had already surpassed the strength level of a soul master. Dai Qianling gave Long Yu a standing ovation. As the emperor, his heart was filled with admiration. Monster Academy would have bright prospects in the future with such an exceptional talent. More importantly, Long Yu and Dai Yuyang had a good relationship. A monarch should always have the support of a top-grade powerhouse, only then could he enforce law and order in his empire. He had captured the throne with the support of his teacher. Teacher, thank you for your contribution in cultivating such excellent talent for the empire. I have decided to increase Monster Academy's resources by 10% to assist you in cultivating more young soul masters in the future. ENCI was the only person who did not stand. He was still sitting and he smiled. Thank you, Your Highness. The cheers felt like mockery to Shrek Academy's contingent. Tang Wulin helped Yu Jingyu up since he was immobilized by his broken ribs. Xie stood by Yu Jingyu's side. He had clenched his fists in rage. Yi Xinglan raised her head and looked toward the frantic audience. She was staring at them with cold eyes. Yuan and Yehui pursed her lips tightly. Xu Lishi's good-natured smile had disappeared and was replaced by a gloomy expression. They were not only facing the opponents in the Continental Young High-Ranking Soul Masters Elite competition, but were also facing the entire Star Luo Empire at the same time. Time, climate, geographical and human conditions were not on their side. They were listening to each cheer, mockery and insult on the competition stage. What was happening was also lashing at their souls. In the audience box. Don't go. Elder Cai grabbed Wu Zhongkong's shoulder. Wu Zhongkong was furious. They need me now. Elder Cai smiled. A good metal needs to be thoroughly tempered and remolded. A human being is just the same. This is the best training for them. We must believe in their resistance to pressure. If they don't wither into the silence, then they will certainly burst forth from the silence. Think about this, will they encounter such a situation if we were on Doluo continent? Will they face such a trial there? Wu Zhongkong was stunned for a moment. He felt the blood pumping erratically in his heart. He wished that he could take Yu Jingyu's place to fight valiantly against Long Yu, who possessed the Mountain Dragon King martial soul, so he could experience what his student went through. However, their opponents had put up a fight which was nothing short of a miracle. Wu Zhongkong's voice was no longer icy cold, but carried a tinge of deep regret. Elder Cai spoke gruffly, "What's a miracle?" A miracle is a conversion of the impossible into the possible. A failure is not petrifying, the petrifying part is dejection. I see anger, and I see humiliation in their eyes, but what I don't see is dejection. Thus, there is no need for you to uplift their morale. They don't need your consolation. What they need is a breakthrough to achieve an even higher potential and vent the frustration in their hearts. This is the ideal time and opportunity for them to grow. We only need to ensure that they don't do anything to threaten their own lives during their growing process. Elder Cai, you're too cruel, Wu Zhongkong spoke through his clenched teeth. Elder Cai spoke glumly, I've always appeared as a bad person. There'll always be a bad person, no? You're like this because old Shuasha was too kind to you in the beginning, then the breakdown occurred afterward. Could it be that you hope what happened to you will happen to your students? Wu Zhongkong quivered in trepidation. The rage on his face subsided as he lowered his head. The scenes from the past swept rapidly past his mind. He once made the choice to compromise, but he did not brace for the suffering. If he had risked his life, Binger would still be with him. It was because of his moment of cowardice he continually made mistakes which eventually ended in tragedy. The teenagers were facing more than just a competition. They were facing a taxing trial of their willpower. They could only depend on themselves to decide how far they could go. Tang Wulin was at the forefront with Yu Jingyu in his arms, while his comrades followed behind as they walked out of the arena. The competition's organizer dispatched army troops to safeguard them all the way back to the hotel. Throughout the journey to the hotel, Tang Wulin and his comrades did not utter a word. Everyone was very quiet. It was silent as the grave. They sent Yu Jingyu back to the room. Xie Xie volunteered to care for Yu Jingyu. Despite their frequent tiffs, Xie Xie's eyes were red with sorrow. Captain! Everyone looked toward Tang Wulin in unison as they walked along the hotel's corridor. Tang Wulin raised his head slowly and spoke with a subdued voice, "Are all of you afraid?" "Afraid my ass!" Xie Xie roared in rage. Tang Wulin continued, "Jingyu had devoted all his effort. At least, he allowed us to see how powerful the opponent is. Perhaps there is no way for us to defeat him. But we will never give up without fighting to the end." Yi Xinglan's eyes were shimmering. "I'm looking forward to the day when I meet him." Yuan and Yehui took a deep breath. "I like this kind of opponent." Xie Xie swayed his arm with a cold-eyed stare. "Kill him." Xu Xiaoyan did not say a word but bit her lower lips. Ji Yu spoke glumly, "Then, we shall all return to cultivate. We shall rely on our innate powers to leave the audience at a loss for words." Tang Wulin's gaze was burning with a fighting will. "We will always stand tall no matter what." Yu Jingyu's loss did not make them lose their morale. Yu Jingyu did not admit defeat throughout the fight. He fought till the last moment. Even though he lost the match, he did not lose his spirit. The Mountain Dragon King martial soul might have terrified the audience, but it definitely aroused the fighting spirit of Shrek Academy. Only such an opponent was capable of uniting and motivating them to cultivate persistently and improve their abilities. It was a victory that suppressed the entire scene, a display of the Mountain Dragon King martial soul's terror that ignited the sentiment of Star Luo City. The media giants of Star Luo Empire competed against one another in reporting the event. All negative political views were muted and Monster Academy was put on a pedestal instantly. Long Yu's Mountain Dragon King martial soul was not considered a beast soul to some extent, but it was a territory-type martial soul. All sorts of experts in Star Luo Continent Soul Masters World carried out assessments that titled Long Yu as a rare extraordinary talent. He had been elevated to the peak and was recognized as the powerhouse with the highest possibility to reach godhood. After all, he was only 20 years old. Bang, bang. Tang Wulin was cultivating in his room when suddenly someone knocked on the door. He frowned slightly, stood up, and opened the door. Xinglan. Tang Wulin was astonished to find Yi Xinglan standing outside the door. Yi Xinglan was not being courteous either as she stepped into his room. "Captain, I have something to discuss with you," Yi Xinglan spoke in a low voice. Tang Wulin nodded. "Go ahead." Yi Xinglan said, "I've discussed with Lishi and we've decided to forfeit the following 2-on-2 match. I'm also foregoing the 1-on-1 match as well." "Why?" Tang Wulin asked in astonishment. Yi Xinglan replied, "I've decided to devote all my effort into producing battle armors. I don't know how many I can produce during this period, but I'll be producing it specifically for you. I'll produce as many as I can to elevate your power." Tang Wulin spoke anxiously, "How are you going to do that?" "Xinglan, your individual power." Yi Xinglan raised her hand to stop him from continuing further. She shook her head and answered, "I know what you want to say, but please listen to me first. Yes, I'm confident of myself, but you also saw the battle between Yu Jingyu and Long Yu today. Even though we refuse to admit it, we are not at the same level as Long Yu. I've never been dejected before, but I'm not going to be blinded by arrogance. I've the most pieces of battle armors, so my overall power is no weaker than yours. But your situation is different from mine. Your bloodline is inherently suppressive toward dragon-type martial souls. I can't be certain if you're able to suppress his martial soul, but this is our only chance. There's still some time from now till the next match. I'll help you to forge some battle armors with Shulishi's assistance. We should be able to complete a few more pieces that will elevate your overall power. Only then do we stand a chance when you fight against him. These days, your elevation is obvious to everyone, especially the second evolution of your martial soul. You're the one who has the highest possibility among us to create miracles. Rather than allowing everyone to fight blindly, why don't we focus on what everyone can contribute toward you? Only then do we stand a chance. Tang Wulin was silent. Even though he refused to admit it, he agreed with Yi Xinglan's assessment of Long Yu. It was true that they were not at the same level as Long Yu. It would be difficult to defeat him even if they were all of the same rank. Moreover, he had 2 soul rings more than all of them. They had only witnessed the surface of Long Yu's power during the battle with Yu Jingyu. Shrek Academy's contingent had not seen the extent of Long Yu's power. No one from Shrek Academy could stand a chance fighting such a powerful opponent in a one-on-one match. Xinglan is right. Ji Yu's voice echoed. Tang Wulin had forgotten to close the door, so she walked straight into the room and closed the door behind her. Yi Xinglan looked toward Ji Yu and nodded. Ji Yu walked to Yi Xinglan's side and looked at Tang Wulin. She spoke knowingly. You asked me about your Golden Dragon King bloodline and Long Yu's Mountain Dragon King bloodline's relative merits today, no? So, I'm going to tell you now. Actually, the most important part that determines whether Xinglan's sacrifice is worthy is your ability to suppress the other dragon-type martial soul's bloodline, whether your bloodline suppression is effective on Long Yu. Tang Wulin nodded. It was true. There was only his martial soul which was capable of exercising a certain amount of suppression toward Long Yu. Therefore, their effort in cultivating would be meaningful, otherwise, it would be a complete waste. Ji Yu continued talking. The Mountain Dragon King held a lofty position in the Dragon Clan. But do you know about the Golden Dragon King's origin? The Golden Dragon King didn't exist in the Dragon Clan initially. The Dragon God was at the top of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon God was born during the creation of the world. He was the most ancient god, the originator of all beast-type gods. The Dragon God was arrogant by nature. After humankind created the divine realm, it entered the divine realm as well. It relied on its power to reign over the divine beasts in the divine realm. The 9 sons of the dragon god that were also the 9 great dragon kings descended to all the planets so they could pass down the legacy. They were the dragon god's direct line of descendants and were also real dragons. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.